Hello and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by Michelle Anhang. Good afternoon, or good morning, should say for you.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. Always a pleasure. So tell us, Michelle, who are you? What are you doing? Where are you from?
Who am I? That's such an
Deep.
existential question. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm kidding.
Straight off the big
It's all
time
good.
board, straight into the
Yeah,
deep end. I love it.
yeah. Let's do it. I live in Toronto, Canada. I'm a mom of two sons who are 21 and 18. My younger one's just off to university for his first time, so I'm an empty nester. Woohoo!
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit about me. And I'm also a professional certified coach. And I work with families and individuals living with mental health challenges and those moving forward after loss.
Well, okay. Why a coach?
Why a coach? Because that was a long journey to get to after many years in the corporate world, and this is the most meaningful work I've ever done, and has me excited every day when I wake up to be able to work with my clients. So that's why.
Well, okay. So I'm going to go straight in here. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, first, let's do first things first. In terms then, I mean, what does Fire in the Belly mean to you?
What is fire? It's what lights you up or lights me up.
Mm.
That's what gets me excited. My passion, my purpose. Yeah, it's lit, being lit.
Do you know what that is?
Be lit?
Well, for you, what lights your
For
passion?
me, yes. Serving people, being able to have conversations like this, going deep and just exploring what makes us human and, what life is about, all the messiness of it. and just, yeah, exploring what makes people tick.
Mm. What does make us human?
What makes us human? Well, living and breathing and all that piece, and screwing a lot of things up.
You have to screw
That
stuff up
was,
to be human. I love it. I'm
I think
professional.
so. Yeah. I think once I gave myself the permission that that's actually part of it, it made life a heck of a lot easier for me.
Mm.
I spent many years thinking the opposite of just, you got to do things a certain way and you got to do it right and make sure everybody else is happy with you. And that's where you'll find your joy and realize, yeah, that's so not true.
So it sounds like you've been on a bit of a journey then, but tell us, where are you now? Are you happy with yourself? Are you in alignment and
Yes,
full of joy?
totally in alignment. Um, Yeah, and I say that now, and then in 5 years, I'm going to be laughing, going like, oh, I thought I was so in alignment. But that's great. I look forward to that day. But today, I'm feeling quite aligned.
Mm.
Today, I'm feeling like the work that I'm doing has purpose. The way that I live my life and raise my kids or have raised them has meaning and purpose. It reflects who I really am at my core, the things that make me happy. And I know I'm in alignment because it's not a struggle. Life is a heck of a lot easier. Like I just get to show up as myself and kind of lean back and say, okay, universe, bring it. And it does. And it's just, things show up that are, just bring me more light and, light that fire in my belly a bit more. So it's just continuing to just learn and grow and love and, lots of good things.
Mm. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I love your passion even when you talk about it, and you can see smile ear to ear as well. That you're just in a contentment. Is that a fair thing?
That's a great word. Yes.
Mm. That's a lovely place to be. And I'm getting a lot of kinesthetic language here.
Yep.
Does
That's
that
me.
sounds about right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's
I love
amazing.
dancing. I love movement. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's a
What's
big
what's
part of who I am.
talk to us about dancing?
Dancing. So I love that question because that's been quite a journey for me. Um, I always loved to dance, and I grew up in a pretty strict home, strict, community with lots of rules, lots of things, and stories around what you should be and what a good girl or a good woman is supposed to look like and speak like and move like. And I realized that that was one of the ways that I had shut myself down and made myself small, was in the way that I moved. And about 10 years ago, I decided I'm going to pursue this passion for dance. It was always like, wherever we'd be, it's like, people would be dancing and, everyone's caring how they look. And I'd want to just be jumping up and down and really just full expression. And, but there were all the stories that got in the way. And so when I first signed up for dance, I did Latin and ballroom dancing, some swing, different styles there. And I remember having this moment of awakening in one of the lessons where we were learning Rumba, which is, a pretty sensual dance. And I couldn't move that way. I was just like, oh my God, my hips don't move well. And I went home and I was just like drowning in shame, bawling my eyes out. And it was just like, I can't believe this dance class had this effect on me. And I went back the next time and I told the teacher, like the instructor, about that. I was like, I had a complete meltdown. And he was like, okay, well, what's going on? I'm like, yeah, this goes against everything in my upbringing about, like religious and all of that, of just, how I should and shouldn't be moving. And I've got to overcome that story. And so I did a series of private dance lessons just to learn how to do the figure 8 swivel of my hips. And so when they say, you can't put a price on certain things, I actually could put a price on that piece of awakening. And so, yeah, after, having a number of lessons and learning and, getting better at it and getting more comfortable in it, it was just like, okay, yes, this is a form of expression that I had disconnected from, that was such a huge part of who I am, and just embraced it more. And so I continued with the dancing, but I reached a point where the ballroom and, well, all of those structured dance classes felt a little too constricting for me. It was just like, I don't want to have to do, like, I love waltz. It's a beautiful, graceful dance, but I don't want to have to tilt my head this way if I don't want to. I want to just jump up and down. And so I found ecstatic dance, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It goes back in history to tribal dances and body shaking and just moving to the rhythm of the music in whatever way your body is called to do it. It's done while you're listening to music playing. There's no speaking. We dance barefoot to connect to Mother Earth. And so it's seen as like a form of moving meditation. So it's just dropping out of your head and not thinking about what's the move I'm going to do next, but actually just feeling into it and fully letting go. And once, I went to the first class, and it's funny because I had seen there were, they had the weekly dances at the same studio where I was taking the lessons. And it was always like, oh, that's just too out there for me. And then, I reached the point where it was just like, okay, I'm going to give it a try. And I went, showed up, and it was like, oh my God, I'm home. Like, I can jump up and down. I can shake. I can do whatever. And for one thing, like, nobody's looking at me. Nobody's judging me. Nobody cares. And, there's the guy on the floor that's slithering like a snake, and the other people that are just rolling around. And then the other guy who's having some sort of seizure. So, like, I'm actually like not even the weirdest one in the room. This is amazing. And, from that point, I started going twice a week and just really explored, what it's like to take up space, like just move all around the dance floor, navigate between the people, fully express in whatever way felt right. And it was one of the most liberating experiences of my life, and such a huge part of, becoming who I am today.
Was there any point in your life you were able to do that before?
No.
Wow.
Not that I gave myself permission to.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. It's quite telling, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What do you call it? Freeform dancing?
It's called ecstatic dance.
Ecstatic dance. I like it. I
Yeah.
like it. There's a lot there.
Yeah. Check it out. It's all over the world.
No, just there's so many people. It's like dance like, what is it? The expression dance like no one's watching, I think is what
Yes.
springs to mind.
Yeah. And here it's like, people can watch, but really no one cares. Like they're actually, I think, a big piece of it. And I have times too, where it's just, I may not feel like I have the energy to dance, but I will just sit quietly and watch others. And, there's something so beautiful about watching people in full expression and just letting go and being in the space, and allowing whatever emotions that want to come up, because sometimes it's joy, but sometimes there's grief or sadness or rage, and just people not feeling they need to hold back in that expression is, I think we all feel that. And I think that's part of why we're here now, is just, hearing other people's stories and seeing other people doing things that maybe we want to be doing, gives us that little extra piece of permission of like, okay, they're doing it. And, I'm not judging them, and I think they're kind of cool, so maybe I can do it too. So that's, I gotten that extra piece from dance as well, of just, that fully just being and allowing ourselves to just be.
Is that the true you?
That's definitely the true me. Yeah.
Wow. I'm loving the smile. The smile is like here to here. It's just like,
it's like, no, I'm lying.
It's like, yeah, you're sort of hiding it so well. I'm still, like, for some reason, sort of this picture of this crazy lady going around the dance floor, but yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. And loving every minute of it.
What is it about the whole thing then? I mean, I'm just curious, because I mean, it's obviously evoking such joy in you, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, something I have learned about myself in my journey is that my number one value is freedom. And so now that I am aware of that, it really helps clarify so many things for me, helps, direct the decisions that I make of just, how does this impact my freedom? Does this take away from it? Does it enhance it? And for me, ecstatic dance is freedom.
That's so strong, because I'm actually reflecting back in terms of, you mentioned about the good girl, good woman, that scenario of growing up. I mean,
mm-hmm.
Sounds like you were almost sort of forced to be a pleaser or a conformist. Have I picked that up correctly?
Yeah. Yep. I grew up in a home with parents who were not mentally healthy, who were also quite fear-driven from their own life experiences, who projected a lot of fear onto myself and my siblings about, being fearful of the world, essentially. It was just, the world is a scary place, and do things the way that we say and what we approve of. And then you'll be okay as long as you don't stray. So, it's like very, very, very small box to fit into. So that was how I thought life needed to be lived, by many, many rules, and, and by approval, and, fearing that, I would be cut off either by my family, by my community, by friends, whoever it was, if I didn't conform to these accepted rules.
I mean, just, that sort of fear of cutting off. I mean, where was that driven from, do you know?
Oh yeah, my family, generations back, people would cut each other off for whatever reasons. So yeah, estrangement was something that I grew up with. This one's not talking to this one or that one, or yeah. And my parents at this point, because I'm living the life that I want to live, are have estranged. We're estranged and have been for many years now. So it's yeah, I mean, now I'm at a point where it's just, okay, thank you. And I'm living my life and honoring that value of freedom, and saying it's unfortunate that they can't find the joy that I have found.
Mm. So I'm kind of wondering how would you be perceived by them then? Is this like, yeah, she's kind of crazy off here too?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I've probably lost my mind to them. I don't know. I haven't asked, but I'm pretty sure that's
I'm kind of getting this feeling this is actually fueling you. You're kind of going, yeah, I'm totally crazy. That's cool,
Yeah, I'm okay if that's what they think of me. That's there's a saying, what other people think of you is none of your business. And I live by that, because I know the pain that the other story caused me of, you need to care what other people think. And I know that I don't feel the pain when I don't worry about what other people think. So it seems like an obvious choice to me.
It's an interesting connection. Thinking and pain is one and the same.
It can be when you're conditioned that way, and you're told over many years, and brought up in that kind of way of, yeah, this is just the way things are done. And it's in the way I was brought up, it was better not to think, just do. And my mother would even say that to me, like, I made all the mistakes already, just do it the way that I tell you to do it and you'll be fine. And it's like, wow, okay. Thanks. That serves me only maybe for the first 4 years of my life, but what about the rest? But she was saying that into my adulthood. So yeah, it's a little scary. And I was buying into it until I didn't.
Isn't it funny? I mean, it'd be handy if life experiences came on a USB. You'd be like, yeah, just don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's, obviously you're with yourself being you mentioned they're a parent, and 21 and 18, so interesting times too, I'm sure.
Yeah. But they're great. I mean, I raised them by doing the completely opposite thing from the way I was brought up. Those were my guiding principles of, like, how was I raised? Okay, go the other way. And I have an amazing relationship with my sons. We're very close. They talk to me about things that many young men don't talk to their mothers about. And I think I'm known as the more laid back parent with many of their friends, of just that I'm accepting, and that's and I'm proud of that, because I do live my life now in acceptance. And we were talking about what it is to be human and being messy and making mistakes, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. Like, there are certain, and I've told my kids throughout their life when they would do things, like, yeah, there are rites of passage we all need to go through. And this is one of those. And you're just learning about yourself. Like, it's okay to fall, get back up, take some of the lessons, and you keep going.
Do you know good. Do you know yourself now? Are you in that place?
I am pretty sure, but I'm also, open to learning more. It's funny. I read a book recently, Personality Isn't Permanent, by Benjamin Hardy. Do you know of the book?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Amazing book. And the premise of the book is that, a lot of these personality tests that we do now are very limiting, because it puts us in a box of, like, oh, if you see yourself as an introvert, then you're going to do things that introverts do. You might not stretch yourself because you don't identify as an extrovert. And it throws, he throws that idea out, and he says, personality is not permanent. We can choose who we want to be in every moment. And his idea is that we create a vision of our future self, and who we want to be, how we want to feel, how, what we want our life to look like. And we set the standard today for, the standard of everything that we do based on whether or not it serves our future self. So I don't know who my future self is going to be, I have an idea, but I also don't want to limit her. So I am very open to the idea of being adaptable to, I'm thinking this way or I'm being this way because this is what I know today. And tomorrow I might be open to something completely different. So I know who I am today, but I don't know who I might be tomorrow. That's the best way I can explain that.
That makes sense. I mean, but do you then try and do you have a certain mantra you live by, or some, a guiding ethos?
Yeah, I definitely have values that I live by, and I'm very emotion focused. So if this feels good or right, then I'll do that. And if it doesn't, then I won't. So I live by that. But again, open to always growing and learning. Like that's the exciting part of the journey.
Hmm. And if something is right for you, how do you know?
I feel it in my gut. It's just a sense. And even, it's, I'm looking, I have on a little sticky note here above my computer. It says, make your future self the new standard for your daily behavior. And so, I do have that image of my future self. And so when I'm, I find that has actually made it so much easier for me to make decisions of just like, okay, who am I today? And something might feel good in the moment, but it's like, okay, does this serve me and what I want in life? And then the answer, to a darn clear and quick of just like, it's a hell yes, or it's a hell no. so I follow that and try not to look at external rule books and guidebooks along the way. I think if I can look in the mirror and say, yeah, I feel like I'm a good person and I've done well today, then that's really what matters.
Mm. Do you like you? Do you value you? Do you love you?
I do. Yes. And I say that again with a big smile because it was a journey to get to this place. But yes, I can say that today I do.
When was the tipping point in your life? When did that change? Or
Gee, there were so many. But I think for me, the real shift was about five years ago, where I recognized that I had made so many choices from a place of shame, that I was in so much pain and all these choices, and I was tolerating so many things in my life because I didn't love myself. I can even go as far as saying like I was filled with self-loathing because I, was from the conditioning and then, just life experiences and choices that I made that just kept perpetuating the shame that I believed. I didn't like who I was. And I reached a point when it was around my 45th birthday where it was just like, okay, I've been in so much pain. I can't live the next half of my life like this. And I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know how to do it. I knew I needed help. And that's when I went, started doing therapy to start healing from a lot of, my experiences and my conditioning. And slowly that, I started to appreciate and value and trust the person that I am. And just by continuously leaning into that and doing more things, based on what's right for me, I started loving myself more and more because I was like, yeah, I could totally trust myself. Whereas before I didn't. It was just like I needed that external validation of, okay, will I be met with approval? Will I, now it's like, yeah, I approve of me. That's good enough. So yeah.
because I was going to ask you, I mean,
Fun.
how was that, how was that serving you at that time? I mean, you mentioned approval there.
Oh, yeah. Well, if we want to go down that pain path, we can go there. I can tell you just how bad my life got. So I got married very young. My husband and I knew each other from the age of 8. We grew up in the same community, started dating at 18, and got married at 22. And partly because that's, what people in our community did. And, I loved him, and I also wanted to get out of my parents' house. So, lots of driving factors there. But no, that being said, I loved him dearly. He was my best friend. And sadly, we didn't know at the time or for many years that he had mental illness. And so it was only after we had both of our kids, were around, in our very early 30s, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and a type of schizophrenia. And it was pretty advanced by the time we got the diagnosis, and he had given up hope and ended up dying by suicide. And the family made the choice because, we don't talk about imperfection. So first of all, nobody knew about the mental illness. We were keeping it a secret. Shame upon shame, his shame, my shame, and bipolar is a very challenging disorder. Well, schizophrenia too, because there are voices telling the person to do things. And, when they're depressed, they're in bed, but when they're manic, they're out there, they are very visible and doing things that are quite erratic. And so, there was some embarrassment around the behaviors. And so we were kind of keeping things, on quiet and not talking about it. And then when he died by suicide, it's like, okay, now how do we explain this? Because nobody knew he was sick. And so, the family decided we're going to say it was an accident, which I went along with. And, partly for my shame, I of course went to like, okay, how might this be my fault? How might I be viewed? How will this impact my kids? There were many things that why I agreed to go along with it. And I kept that secret for almost 11 years. So I didn't grieve a suicide. I grieved a fake accident. I was living a lie. I was isolating myself. And of course, we all want to see ourselves as good people, or at least I hope we all do, but I did. And so living with this, this dual life of, inwardly grieving the suicide and knowing everything I'd been through, and then outwardly having to tell people that I met it was an accident, or if, people I knew would ask for details, oh, I don't want to talk about it. I just kept feeling like a liar and a fraud. And so that sort of, that shame and, again, the people pleasing and all of these stories of, how I believed I was supposed to be just led me to make choices that were not in my best interest. Seeking relationships that were very, very unhealthy, staying in corporate jobs that I wasn't happy in. Being a single mom, it was like, okay, I have this job. I worked in finance for 10 years. And I thought, well, I'm a single mom. I, need this job. It's a secure job. I can't just walk away. What will people think? And, and I didn't dare to dream either. So it wasn't like, well, what do I actually want to do with my life? I never thought I had that choice. It was, it was never even a question I could answer, because my life had been so directed for me that I didn't know how to dream. Reaching that tipping point at 45 of just realizing, at that time that, okay, it was almost 10 years now I was in that job. I was in a relationship that was the closest I had ever come to reliving my parental home, and which was an extremely painful experience. And I was just like, I just can't do this anymore. I will do whatever it takes to not live this way. And I didn't know what that meant, but I was just like, the pain of healing can't be worse than the pain I'm living right now. And so, just did some deep, deep therapy, some hard work.
a lot. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing because there's so much there. Do you mind if I ask what age you are?
Yeah, I'm 49.
49. I was going to say, because I couldn't quite, well, I didn't want to do the maths sort of to assume, but it's why 45? I mean, what's
Midlife crisis? I don't know.
great
I think it
opportunity.
was,
I love a midlife crisis. So.
right? Who doesn't love a good midlife crisis? Thank God for
Midlife
those.
opportunity, we say, you know?
Yes, yes, exactly. But I mean, for me, it was definitely a crisis because my life was a sham. You know, I was not living my own life. I was living based on these stories and ideas of what I thought everybody else wanted me to be. I don't even know if they cared. They probably didn't. Yes. As I know now, people don't think about us as much as we think about. We think that they think about us. We're all too busy worrying about ourselves. But when you have that belief, then it's hard to argue it.
Just put the timeline on me here. So, I mean, you married at 22.
Yeah. I'm widowed at 34.
Wow. It's 12 years on, really.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, when did the diagnosis sort of come into play there as well?
I was about 31. Yeah, something like that. And we were the same age.
Wow.
So yeah, he had just turned 35 when he lost his life.
Wow. And, really, I suppose for you then is going through, it's, this, fast forward, as you mentioned, those sort of 11 years of, living the lie, as you call it, I think, if I remember
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Just take me right back, first of all. I mean, what did, Mini Michelle, what did she want to do when she grew up?
She didn't know. She waited for her mother to tell her. Because that was how we did things in our family.
Did you ever know?
No, I didn't. I think that I believed it was wrong to dream, and it was an act of rebellion to want something other than what I was told to do. And I didn't dare rebel because the repercussions were not pleasant.
That's not what a good girl does.
No. And I would be reminded of that if I did do my own thing. I do remember being a pretty feisty young kid and wanting to break free, but I didn't dare.
What were the consequences?
It was emotionally abusive to, on the best of days and manipulation, but, threats, emotional abuse, just being told I was stupid, being told I, didn't know what I wanted, that I made stupid mistakes. They weren't just mistakes, they were stupid mistakes. Let's make sure we get that right. And, sometimes there was physical repercussions as well. And, it was this fear. I mean, my mother instilled this deep fear in all of us that we didn't even dare, to rebel because we were afraid of what we haven't seen yet.
You know why she did that?
Yeah, she's a very unhealthy person.
Do you know why?
I have my assumptions, but without a formal diagnosis. I've had, enough therapists tell me what they think and from my own education and, I have my guesses, but I don't want to name anything just because it's, it wouldn't be a formal diagnosis. But I do know that, aside from what I might think, might be diagnosable, she grew up the child of Holocaust survivors. She had gone through the Russian Revolution in Hungary when she was 5. They had to escape, hiding under blankets, being, carried away in a horse-drawn cart to, move to Austria in the middle of the night, leaving everything behind. So I think, there was a lot of her own PTSD. And I think that in her way, this is how she thought she was being a good mother. But it didn't serve us.
'Cause I'm always of interest in the comment, your voids are your values, and quite often
Mm-hmm.
things are, it's the it's not it's the it's not the cause. Quite often things, are a lot of things that, it's the cause, not the symptom.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's right at all, but I'm just curious always about the
Mm-hmm.
background, and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I think she is very I know she is very fear driven.
Hmm.
And so I think that this just was how she thought she could take care of her kids. And then if we did our own thing, the only way she could bring us back in line was kind of to tear us down so that we didn't try again.
Siblings? Did you have any?
Yes, I have 3 siblings.
Well, so you guys
Yeah,
stay in touch?
I'm in touch with one
Hmm.
right now,
Hmm.
but that was, a very, very challenging because unfortunately, my mother's way of raising her kids was divide and conquer. So that's how she maintained the hierarchy. And so, yeah, it's only now one of my siblings who's doing their own deep work reached out to me a couple of years ago and said, okay, I get it now. And I'm seeing things in a different way and we need to talk. And it was like, all right, let's do this. So yeah,
How would you have
it's been
helped you back then?
how would I have helped me? I don't know. I think, probably calling children's services or children's aid, whatever I know I have family members who, once I became an adult said that there were times where they were very tempted to do that, but they were all terrified of,
Hmm.
my mother coming after them. So yeah, so they didn't. But I think really removing us would have been the only option.
Well,
Not to say that that would have been a better option either,
hmm.
because I've, when I worked in law, I actually worked in the area of child apprehension, and so I saw firsthand what the experiences were, and so yeah, I don't know. I don't, I know this was my journey, and I'm happy for where I'm at today. So I try not to look at the what ifs because I don't think it serves me.
Hmm. So through senior school and things, what sort of a character were you then?
Senior school, high school,
High school, sorry,
high
yes.
school. Yeah. Okay. um, I was a follower. I went along with what people did. I got sneaky. I did, but sometimes I was busted on it, and then it wasn't fun. Many screaming matches with my mother. I always said, she brought out a side in me that no one else has seen. That, thankfully, I haven't experienced in decades either. But yeah, it was trying to fight for my independence and my own life, but then just being beaten down emotionally to the point where it was just like, okay, I give up. And so I think that is one of the reasons why I was happy to be getting married at a young age.
I'm curious. I mean, you talked about and you talked about a community. Was this an organized community, or was this something else? Can I ask?
Both. Yeah, both. Yeah, I don't want to call out any communities because
No,
there
that's fair.
are many like that, but often when we're in smaller, tighter communities, there are rules. And then when religion gets thrown in, there's other things. So yeah, just there were many layers of rules
Hmm. Hmm.
in my life. So I can't pinpoint any one of them, but just being part of so many structures where that existed, you kind of think that's just all there is in the world.
Well, So married at 22, what work-wise, what were you doing at that point?
At that point, I was working as a law clerk. I had finished my BA in psychology, but didn't want to go into that work. And
Why not?
you know, I mean, I think, well, I mean, I know the stories I told myself of why not, but I think the truth is I was so unhealthy. I don't think I could have helped anybody at that point.
The blind leading the blind comes to mind.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm.
Um, I think, I needed to do my own work on myself before I could get to a place to really feel good about helping other people. So yeah, the law clerk thing was, well, guess what? My mother told me, hey, why don't you do that? And I said, okay. And that's really how it happened, actually. And so I did that, and told myself it was a good job because it was 9 to 5 and I could leave work behind, and gave me what I needed to be, a wife and a mom. And so I did that because that was the right thing to do.
Interesting, the language there, as in you've told yourself, as in it sounds like you've almost at some point you've split on the road and saying, well, okay, this is me, but I now need to sort of tell me to, are
Oh,
you
yeah.
conscious of that split?
Oh, completely. Yeah. I realized that my inner voice and my inner critic was my mother. And so, yes, even
Just one
after I
voice,
left the
or?
house, yeah, yeah,
Mm.
it was primarily her. It was what would my mother say? I mean, I wasn't conscious of it at the time,
Sure.
but during my healing journey, I had that wake up call of like, oh my God, so now I'm out of the house and I am living my own life and she's not abusing me. So I just took over the role and started abusing myself.
Because that was your values, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, law clerk, how did that treat you?
Not great.
I love that you're laughing about it. I'm sort of laughing with you because ultimately,
Yeah.
that there's a good
I
ending.
mean, I
But
could laugh or I could cry. I
mm,
don't feel the pain in the same way. And I can't, I think laughter is the best medicine when we
mm,
can laugh at ourselves and go, wow, and I don't do it in a mocking way.
mm.
It's more of a lighthearted way of just, not taking myself so seriously. Cause I did, I've gone through that stage and, speaking publicly and being in the pain. I've healed much of that. And yeah, I could look back and just shake my head and say like, wow, I was in so much resistance all the time. And it's like, oh, poor me, but yeah, I feel it's healthier for me to see it from this perspective and be compassionate. It's just like, yeah, I like, wow, I was a bad movie.
Do you recognize yourself? I mean, is it almost like that's a completely different life, or?
It was a completely different life. It's interesting because now that I am working on my book, I'm going through some old journals. I burned most of them and I'm kind of regretting that. But then at the same time in the ones that I found on my laptop that I was rereading, I'm like, oh, thank God I burned those other ones, because it's like, wow, like it takes me back to a place where, now being in this place that I'm in and having the detachment from it, I look and I can see how clear it was where I was self-sabotaging. Um, but I also remember the mindset I was in at that time of just, somebody please love me because I don't love me and my parents have not loved me. And just somebody, and just really, I remember a therapist once saying to me, it was like that Dr. Seuss book, Are You My Mother? Like I was just literally looking around and like would latch on to anybody who I thought had the potential to love me. And because I only knew love from unhealthy people, that's who I latched onto. I thought I had my best chances with those people, obviously, on an unconscious level. But, that was my pattern. But yeah, just, reading the journals and the pain that I was in and justifying that pain, even at times saying like, I know I'm going to get hurt by this, but I'm going to do it anyways. Like, actually, I wrote that out. I'm going to see where this journey takes me. It's like, oh my God, why would I do that to myself? Like, now I'm just like, okay, well, let's take the easier route that feels good. And like, well, now I choose not to put myself into those kinds of positions of just like, yeah, this doesn't feel so good. So, and I think, many of us do that because that's what we know. And we build up a tolerance to the pain. So for us to actually feel that tremendous amount of pain, it's got to get really, really bad. So yeah, anything that was like, below a 7 was manageable for me, because that's just what I thought life was at.
I suppose as well, I mean, obviously you're coming across very kinesthetically as well. So it's like, you feel the pain as in, if I'm not feeling it, and then I'm not taught how to feel, or I'm told not to feel. So hence the circle goes on in terms of don't feel, right. I can't feel, what do I do? How do I feel?
Yeah. And don't trust your feelings. That was another one that I, was told not to trust my feelings. When my mother would say, I would say, well, this is, no, you're wrong. This is what's true. So I was really taught to doubt myself, which just created that, or reinforced that dependency.
Can I ask you, did you ever try to hurt yourself?
No. I was too afraid of what will everyone think of me if I do. Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite something.
And there, there was also the element of perfectionism that is something that I've spoken publicly about, being a recovering perfectionist, and everything needs to look good on the outside. And now as I'm writing my book, I've been thinking how so many stories start with the main character finding themselves like on the bathroom floor in this mess, and that's when they have their moment of awareness, and it's like, I wouldn't do that because the floor is, I've just cleaned the floor. I'm not going to mess it up. So that wouldn't be me. But that was really it. It's just, maintaining that perfect illusion of everything is fine and dandy. And I had mastered it, just shut everything down, put on the makeup, have the hair look great. And, nobody will know what's going on the inside. And, it's interesting too, because I remember a friend of mine telling me how someone had commented after my husband died, she looks too good for someone whose husband just passed away. And it was like, part of me felt a little bit of pride, I'll be honest. And the other part of me was like, well, that's the only thing in my life right now I have control over, is my hair and my makeup. And so that was the little bit of control that I was holding on to, because, I didn't know how to be in an uncontrolled or, chaotic environment, because everything had been so tightly held until that point.
Knowing now what you know, I mean, what sort of labels, or what boxes would you be ticking for you back then?
Oh gosh. You mean to be labeling myself? Oh, well, perfectionist was definitely one. Pleaser, we mentioned. Follower, doormat. there was, I'm, now kind of shifting out of the negative things, and I definitely had the independence. I had courage.
Mm.
And I fought myself on those. So that's why I'm thinking like, would I tick those boxes now? It's, a very complicated question for me, because it's like, yeah, those characteristics were always in me. Like I always knew something was wrong with my family. And, I remember saying to my friends, like, I think my family's crazy. And they'd be like, yeah, I think my family's crazy too. I'm like, no. Like, mine is next level crazy. Like, I know your family. They're cool. They love each other. They're nice. But I always had that sense, and I always did kind of want to break free. And and I mentioned, being, remembering being much younger and being feisty and being independent and wanting to do my own thing. So I think that was always in me, but I resisted it so much. So, I'll check the self-defeating box there, but I will also check the feisty and independent and courageous boxes too, because today I'm in a more loving and compassionate place.
I mean, going back and from what you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
would anyone have been able to tell from the outside?
Oh, no, no one knew.
Mm.
No one knew.
Scary.
And that's, yeah. And that's so common in many dysfunctional families, especially, in the work that I'm doing now. That's such a common theme of, we're all in the car yelling and screaming, or being yelled at and screamed at. And then we get out of the car and we paint that, put the mask on. And it's like, hi, yeah, we're the perfect family. So yeah, it was being a master at hiding who I was and hiding how I really felt.
What's your earliest memory?
My earliest memory. My earliest memory is having a crush on a boy in high school. And not in high school, sorry, in kindergarten.
What was his name?
His name is Sean. And he had the most beautiful blue eyes I had ever seen, with long eyelashes. And I remember wanting to sit next to him in circle time.
What age were you?
5.
Love it.
Yeah. So.
It's amazing. There's sort of, straight away, there's a big smile there, and the laugh. It's great to see.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, that was feisty me saying like, okay, how can I sit closer to him?
I love it.
A little mischievous.
Yeah. What is your character default? What would somebody describe you as?
It's such a good question, because it really depends on when you met me.
The true you, then.
The true me. The true me is filled with love. I am very loving. I am very accepting. And I'm smiling now because I'm thinking, what will my kids say? They have a whole other story of like who I think I am. No, I think they think that too, except for when they're mad at me. Then it's a different story. But that I love life, that I'm courageous, that I'm giving. I think, some of my old patterns show up sometimes. And so that, they see those too. I think they also see me as unapologetic and just very accepting of like, yeah, this is who I am. And these are my quirks. And yeah, that's it. It's all real.
I love that. I mean, what's been your parenting style?
It depends again at what point in my life. So when I was trying to find some semblance of normalcy in a very chaotic situation where I was lying about the truth about my husband's death, I was feeling like I needed to control a lot. my kids were very little, I was terrified that they were going to find out the truth. I was also terrified that they might have inherited something. And all I knew was, if you keep your finger on the pulse at all times, then you won't miss anything. And you won't go through that kind of, experience again, like something that devastating. Then through my healing, I let go of a lot. I think the more, I always kind of did things the opposite ways than my parents did things. So, I knew the cost of putting your kids down and not telling them that they are amazing human beings just for existing. So that was a very, very important thing to me, even when I didn't know any better of, how to live my own life well. It was like, I know what I needed to hear as a kid. And so I did raise my kids as, telling them that they are worthy and always giving them choice. My older one in particular was always quite strong-willed, from, I think in utero, he knew exactly, and, so I just, with him, like, even if it came down to, going to the store to buy him clothes when he was 3, it was like, okay, there's the red shirt or the blue shirt. Which one do you want? And letting him feel like he had, had a choice in that. Because he actually, at that age, cared about what he wore. And my younger one didn't care. He was just like, just give me my clothes, mommy. But just honoring who they were as individuals as well, of just knowing like that was important to my older son. So honoring that. My younger one wanted that direction, but he was always, he always marched to the beat of his own drum, and it was just like, okay, I got to let him be. And, I don't agree with his clothing style all the time, or, didn't then. It was like, cool, but this is his way of self-expression. And look at the smile on his face when he's wearing it. So I'm certainly not taking that away. Like, I want to see that every day. So that's how I tried. I tried to live my life and to parent, and at the same time, I was keeping this huge secret from them. I have to be honest about that too. And so there was, that piece of me that was, I told myself that it was better for them to not know at that stage in life. And, I can't say that I have a regret about that, because I know how children internalize everything. And, they likely would have wondered if there was some way they could have saved their dad, or maybe blame themselves if they're, that maybe somehow they might have said or done something wrong. So I don't have that regret, but I do regret not, that lie kind of created a little bit of a wall between us. So I wish that had not been there as I was raising them.
Is that not what parents do?
I don't know. I can't speak for other people. I think we all, I don't think there are any two people in the world who parent in the same way. So, I think many of us have walls. I don't know how far that extends, because it's everybody's unique.
On your timeline, and I'm just conscious of your, you had a lot going on at that time, because you talked about the diagnosis, you talked about, having 2 young boys, a lot going on, your own sort of stuff, if you like, the whole thing.
Yeah.
What's your reflection back now and all that time?
What's my reflection now? It happened. It's in the past, and today I choose differently.
What sort of triggered with your husband? I mean, what sort of, how did that all come about, if you don't mind me asking?
Which piece?
I suppose with your husband and his diagnosis, ultimately, and you're going forward.
So I think his diagnosis made sense out of something that was not making sense.
Mm.
Um, and it also made it harder for me and maybe a little bit easier for him, because once he had the diagnosis, it kind of gave him the permission to stop faking it as well. And so then, then he stopped working. He went on disability leave. He would spend days in bed when he was depressed. Sometimes we wouldn't see him for a couple of days when he was manic. There were a lot of erratic behaviors that go along with that. So when he wasn't working, I had to pick up a second job. And I was taking care of our two little ones because he was not in an emotional or physical place to be able to be a caregiver for them much of the time. And I didn't always, I didn't know from day to day what his moods would be like, whether he was okay or not. Sometimes it could shift from, hour to hour. So there was a lot of responsibility on me to maintain the household. So that was extremely challenging. And, while part of me felt relief in the sense that he, okay, now we can get him the treatment and we can get him the medication that he needs. The medication didn't work for him. And some of them had very adverse reactions. So that actually made things harder. And, we got to a point where the only option was electroshock therapy. And he was like, nobody's going to fry my brain. Thank you. And I don't blame him. That was terrifying. And yet that was the only thing that at that point they were thinking was going to work. And then, that's when we lost him. So, it, lots and lots of challenges and lots of explanations of like, okay, now I get what's going on.
From what you've said there, I mean, it sounds like, with your husband, I mean, the fact that he's able to, with the electric shock therapy to make a conscious decision, but then there's almost like the other person then, do you know what I mean? It's coming across as multi-personality there as well.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on. He had voices that were telling him things. He went into psychosis at one point. I'm not sure, that he necessarily should have been the one to be making the decision. And that's where I see a lot of failures in our system globally when it comes to mental health challenges. Because I actually had put him in the hospital two weeks before he passed away. I'd had him admitted. Ironically, I thought he might accidentally hurt himself or somebody else. I didn't think it would be intentional. But he talked his way out of it and they believed him. And, there's here in Canada, we call it a Form 1 where you have somebody admitted. And so, this happened on a Friday evening, and on Sunday they called me and said, listen, we've got to release him. And I said, can't you wait till tomorrow and call his psychiatrist? Like, he's got a couple of years worth of records. Maybe you and the psychiatrist who he sees every week can make that decision together. And they said, sorry, we can't hold him against his will. And so they released him. And of course, he was talking his way out of it. He said like, oh, my wife is pissed off at me and she's just being a bitch and I would never hurt myself. Like, she's crazy. Like, he was saying all of that. And they were like, yeah, okay, go. And they let him out. And first thing he did was he made plans to go to New York City or New York, where he had an old high school friend. He told me he wanted to go away for a few days and see his friend. I thought, okay, great, maybe that'll be good for you. And that's where he died. So yeah, it's sad in that way. And, I see it as a failure in the sense of the healthcare system of why wouldn't you wait 12 hours or 24 hours and get a full picture? Why are you taking this person's word for it? Not talking to the family. And not only that, they released him. There were no follow-up calls. There was no information for me on, this is how you need to be. This is what you should look out for. it was, as though he had gone in, to get a cast put on his arm. Cast was put on, and they're like, okay, see ya, come back in 6 weeks. Actually, then you come back. There wasn't even a follow-up. So it was literally just treated like that. And, from clients that I've spoken to and conversations I've had with many people, it's a problem globally that, this is, it's not dealt with well. And there are a lot of gaps. This is where we're losing lives.
Can you sort of have any perception of what his sort of mindset or reasoning was at that time, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I can, because he called me right before he died. He told me that his brain was bad and it was only getting worse. The voices in his head were getting louder and were telling him to do things that he knew would be harmful to our family, and he didn't know how to stop them, and he thought this was better for the family.
What do you make of that now?
I don't. That was where he was at. I don't have a judgment about it. I don't. I think he thought that was the right thing, and I know he was in tremendous pain. He really only shared this with me right before he passed, and he shared little bits of information with different friends. So it was only after he died that people came to me and said, it's interesting because he said da 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 to me, and then that's when I could put the whole picture together of what was really going on for him. But I think he thought he was protecting all of us, and he was not himself at the end. He was a very, I guess he was, in the sense that he loved his family tremendously. And I think this is, what he thought was the right thing. But, he wasn't himself. He was a very, very, very sick person. And so, he did what he thought in that state was the right thing to do.
How do you feel about it all now? I mean, that's maybe a stupid question. I don't know, but
and it's hard to answer because there are so many different pieces of all of it. There's obviously sadness. A beautiful human being lost his life. I lost a man I loved. I don't know what the future would have brought. I don't know where we would be today. I know my children lost their father, and I also know that he was suffering terribly. So, as I was saying, when you asked me to describe myself, like I try to come from a place of love and compassion and see that for him and for all of us, that I think, we were all doing our best in a very difficult situation and coming from, places where we didn't know any better, for whatever reasons. And so I can only have compassion for everybody that was involved in it and is, that survived it.
There's a number of things, obviously, I'm cautious of your perfectionism, as you mentioned there, as would have been at that time, the sort of family connotations, the, just everything coming together, really all those, very, what's, in terms of symptom or cause, what's your take on it, and so the diagnosis you mentioned was bipolar and schizophrenia?
It manifests itself in different ways in different individuals. I think if anybody listening is interested in or concerned, look it up. Get your own information. Now there's so much more available than was available at the time. Ask the questions, talk to the professionals, because, you know, the way it manifested with my husband is different than other people's experiences. So, you know, and not being somebody who's professionally trained, I'm reluctant to go into the details of that. But, you know, I think really we all have a responsibility to educate ourselves in all aspects of mental health and our own mental health, and just knowing and making the choices, you know, that will help us and keep us, you know, healthier. And also understand that, you know, adults are going to make their own choices, and we are not responsible for those too.
After all that happened, I mean, talk to us about your journey, and because, you know, you mentioned about your, you know, the sort of the 11 years as you tagged it. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, it was a time of being closed off, not letting people in. I didn't talk about my husband because I just didn't want the conversation to come up around his death. I went through my own mental health challenges. I had depression because, you know, I think just a lifetime of everything that I was holding in. And then this huge, huge lie that I was carrying, and just kind of shoved everything down and like, don't go there, don't touch it, don't deal with it. That, you know, impacted me physically and mentally. And then having anxiety, and, you know, so, you know, just being in fear. And again, the fear from that was instilled in me as a child, to now this fear of being called out for, you know, making this choice that I made of what the truth was, and just tolerating things, not feeling like I deserved better.
That's quite it's quite a shopping list of things, really, you know, from,
Right.
you know, it's like, I mean, I
Yeah.
you know, just so many things there.
Mm-hmm.
Were you aware of your state? I mean, what, I mean,
Not entirely. No, I think that's, I was just on autopilot, and I didn't really, you know, I knew things were hard. I knew I came from an unhealthy family, um, but I didn't understand how much it was really impacting me.
it's always, that's the thing, you know, at some point, you know, as you say, like people compare, you know, my family's crazy. It's like, no, you should see mine. You know, it's almost, but when you isolate, I suppose, and then depression, anxiety, and perfectionism, and everything else thrown together, it's almost worse when you stop. Not when you stop comparing. You just think that's normal, right?
Yeah. That's all I knew.
So what happened?
That changed it. It was the 45th birthday. It was looking at my life and where I was, and the pain.
The expression, you know, great overwhelm comes great change, and it seems like, you know, that.
Yeah.
I mean, did it? I'm curious about that. I mean, was there a particular? Was it the birthday? Was it something that happened?
It was a lot of things that happened around the time of the birthday that, you know, there were a number of things. There was, you know, an incident of like 2 days after my birthday, I saw my dad at the grocery store. We actually didn't live too far away from each other, but he wasn't speaking to me. And, you know, I was on my phone and I looked up and I saw him, and we made eye contact briefly, like he had been watching me. And then as soon as we made eye contact, he looked away very quickly, and that was it. And in my head, I thought, don't you want to wish me happy birthday, Daddy? And, you know, being pretty devastated by that, sharing it with my then boyfriend, who kind of brushed it off and didn't understand, you know, the impact of that. So then feeling rejected a second time, getting fully triggered, and then having him laugh at me being triggered. And so, and realizing like, oh my God, like who am I with? What am I doing? And the moment of realization of, I am choosing to be with him. I am choosing these things, and I can choose something different. That was really what was so pivotal. And that's where it was, like, yeah, I've lived in all this pain, and I'm choosing not to do that anymore. I'm not living another 45 years like this. So it was, I think that for me was a huge pivot of making a commitment to myself that I actually did deserve better.
Mm. I mean, two words that obviously jump out there is choice and pivot,
Yeah.
it's deciding,
Yeah. Yeah.
and realizing you've got to potentially a midpoint in your life, statistically, give or take, and you sort of go, well, we can follow a line here. This is where we're going for the rest, or
Right. Right.
you can choose.
Yeah. And realizing I was doing it everybody else's way and it wasn't making me happy. So what if I tried to do it my own way, whatever that is? First I had to learn how to do that. But yeah, realizing like it can't get much worse than lying for 10 years about your husband's suicide, being in a borderline emotionally abusive relationship, being in a job where you're going in every day and punching in numbers when that's not what you should be doing, and even just the type of work I was doing went against a number of my values. And so just recognizing all of that I was living for everyone else, and yet I was suffering. So just saying, okay, I'm done with that. There's got to be a better way. And I hope somebody tells me. But yeah.
What was the healing process for you then?
The healing process was pretty intense. I did, traditional talk therapy. I did EMDR, which is for trauma. It's a trauma therapy. It's reprogramming our mind. Pretty cool stuff. And I did somatic work as well, because they say trauma is trapped in our bodies. So it's releasing the trauma that's trapped in our fascia. So I did all of that. That's when I started to do the coaches training. I'm very grateful to a very close friend of mine who at the time had become a coach and intuitively knew that I would be great at that job. And she was just like, you need to take this course. And I didn't know what it was. I was just like, I don't know. I don't want whatever, it was a lot of money. And she was just like, just try it out. It's like, go for the first 2.5 days. You'll get a lot out of it in your current job, like learning certain skills. And going to that course and realizing like, oh my God, these are my people. This is where I need to be. This is very different than, the way I had grown up and the people I had overall surrounded myself with. This was a place where, like, I remember the first day they actually put a label on our arms. It was a sticker, and the word fail was written on it. And you got a star for every time you failed. So it was awesome. It was terrifying for me. I mean, imagine I'm a deer caught in headlights. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, but then once I leaned into it, it was just like, there's so much permission here to do whatever and be whatever. And I couldn't get enough. And it was just like, okay, sign me up for everything. So doing that, and there's a lot of healing that comes in that work too, and challenging. I mean, coaching is challenging our limiting beliefs. So in the training, we're coaching each other. Everybody's kind of contemplating what their own beliefs are. So yeah, it was, healing a lot of the past, physically and psychologically, and then as well moving into the forward, into the future of who do I want to be and how do I want to show up now that I have a choice. So
amazing. Again, there's the word choice.
Yeah, choice is big.
It's always I suppose for you, and it sounds like, leaning in there, I think is a great term, because you chose to actually go on the path, but it also
Mm-hmm.
sounds like once you start to pull a bit of the string, that you can't stop, right?
Oh yeah, it was like, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life.
Did you feel like you were sort of moving into your purpose, or what? Describe to me that sort of feeling.
um, yeah, I think I did. It took a while because there was a lot of undoing
Mm.
first, but it felt right, and I felt free. And that's, again, that's my top value, and that's what I kept leaning into, of just like, this feels good. Life doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be painful. Like, I don't believe in the no pain no gain. Like, no, actually, you can have lots of gains and not feel the pain. Like, we don't need to suffer to get what we want. So changing those stories, and then leaning into them, and then realizing, wow, I've overcome that. Now I see what my purpose is helping people overcome what their limiting beliefs are, and saying, like, yes, I've lived it. I've come from a lot of darkness, and now my life is filled with light, and it's possible for anyone. And having that desire to share that with others and see others find their own light, feels very purposeful. And so, it was a process for sure.
And I love that expression, and the one that sort of comes up is, to know, what is it, to know the light, you got to see the darkness, or vice versa, obviously in your
Yeah.
case,
Yeah.
and you can see it. And what's coming across is almost that you've inverted that negative energy. That's what I'm sort of getting in terms of, well, you tell me, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, hopefully.
Yeah. I think, it's a complete rewire
Mm.
of the way that I thought and what I believe to be true. Um, it's That's the best way I could describe it. It's literally rewiring everything, and challenging the beliefs. That was a big piece of it. True. And I never thought to question it, but now I am.
Mm.
And so then, moving into that place of constantly questioning, okay, why do I believe this? Does believing this serve me? How does it serve me? And again, does it give me the freedom and the joy that I, now know is how I want to live?
Mm.
And that, it goes back to the beginning of our chat where we were talking about alignment. And, that's it, that when I'm being true to me, that's complete alignment. And knowing that that's right, and that when I'm in this place, of love, of compassion for myself, for others, of groundedness, of challenging those beliefs, I will always show up as my best.
Mm.
Like, it's guaranteed. And whatever my best is, and again,
Mm.
my best doesn't have to be perfect. It's my best, and I'm okay with that, whatever that looks like.
What do you see as your gift or your purpose now?
Um, well, my gift and my purpose, I think, I see it a little differently. My purpose, I think, right now, well, I mean, I think it's to share my light and my love, help others find their own light and their source of love, and hopefully that can come from within. And my gift is being able to go into really dark places with other people, because I've been there already on my own journey.
Mm.
I can be with a lot of darkness. There's very little that shocks me. I don't judge it, because I know we've all made choices that we think, had I known differently, or maybe I could have done better. And that's okay. And it's just embracing the messiness. So I think that's it. And being able to be with all the emotions that come with it as well.
Mm.
And not running from it, not wanting to dodge it, just saying, yeah, it's here. Like, just be.
Who do you think you can serve the best?
I think the people I serve the best are people who are in similar situations than what I've lived through. People that, you know, and it doesn't have to be the same life experience, but I think it's often similar belief systems that we don't have choices, that we don't deserve better, that we have to do, you know, we have to please other people, those kinds of things. People that maybe, you know, have little self-worth, you know, and helping them find their truth.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does the future hold for you?
I don't know yet. I know there's a book because I'm starting to work on that. Hopefully more of this work, and you know, at the same time, growing and staying open to whatever comes my way, because I know when I'm in alignment, great things have happened. And if you had told me 2 years ago that I'd be having this conversation, that I'd be getting on stages talking about, you know, my husband's suicide and all this dark stuff, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. There's no way in hell. Like, so I didn't tell some of my best friends, you know, they didn't know the truth about my husband. So I hid a lot. And the fact that like now I'm out publicly talking about all of this stuff, I wouldn't believe you. So I, you know, I see good things for myself. I see continuing to do the work that brings me joy now and staying open to the potentials that I don't even see yet.
I'm just curious. I mean, what do you see as being harder or easier? I mean, that's perception, but you know, in terms of processing, you know, was it your, you know, the event with your husband, or was it your own story and journey that you know, processing wise?
I think it was all of it. Sorry, my battery is about to die, so I'm
No.
little tech moment. Now I'm going to pop these out. Okay. Now, release. So it's really hard to say. I don't think I could pinpoint. I think it's yes to everything, all of it, because I don't think we can heal one aspect of our life and ignore other areas. I think when we're doing the work, we have to just be ready to embrace it all.
I love it. Yeah, it's, as you say, there's different parts, and I suppose it's impossible to compare as such, you know. Tell me this,
Yeah.
what's a bit of a guilty pleasure for you?
What's a guilty pleasure? Well, dance, but it's not even guilty. You know what? I don't feel guilty about anything that gives me pleasure. Yeah, dance, although that's pretty limited these days. You know, right now for me, pleasure is being with people I love, being in nature, you know, all these things that it's like, oh gosh, the pandemic's really put a damper on a lot of those things. But even just treating myself kindly. You know, I found during the pandemic that yes, while we were limited in so many social interactions and activities, I could create a lot of that in my own home and create some of those same feelings. So for me, you know, this was a period of time where I got really healthy. I got very fit. I started eating better. And for me, that was pleasurable, of like, you know what, I'm honoring myself and my body and feeling really good. I'm getting a lot of sleep, you know, couldn't go out anywhere. So it's like, okay, I'm going to bed at 10 every night. And oh my God, I felt great every day. So, you know, I think it's making do and just, again, having that mindset of, okay, what will bring me joy today? What can I do? And seeking it out and finding it and doing it, and not limiting myself at all.
And you mentioned journaling there. Do you still journal?
I still journal. Yes. Not daily, but definitely when there are big things going on, I journal. If I'm not feeling great, then I do gratitude journaling. It's, you know, always great to remind ourselves of what we're grateful for. And well, and now that I'm writing my book, you know, I think that's taken the place of the journaling.
It's kind of one and the same, really, isn't it? I suppose in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I see journaling as like, this is what's going on for me in the moment, versus this is a story that I'm telling others about maybe something that happened in the past.
Sure, sure. No, it's awesome. So tell us, fire in the belly for you then. What is your fire in the belly in 1 or 2 words?
Love illuminated.
Didn't see that coming.
No.
Wow. I love that.
Thank you.
I love the smile. Thank you for sharing. I genuinely appreciate it. You know, and this wasn't where I was expecting to go, but that's great. That's the joy of
Me
this.
neither.
So, how can people reach out to you, follow you, track you down, learn more?
Yeah, you can find me on my website, which is michelleanhangcoaching.com. I'm also all over social media with the same handle, Michelle Anhang Coaching, pretty much everywhere but TikTok, because my kids won't let me go on it. Apparently I'm too old. They're like, please don't be one of those moms. So
Is that the reason why you should be doing it?
Well, I say I'm not on it right now. I'm a little bit tempted, but then I'm also like, oh, then I have to make videos, more videos. So yeah, it's maybe a matter of time, but really you can find me everywhere.
Any closing thoughts?
Gratitude to you. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for taking this conversation into places I didn't expect to go, and for holding the space for me to go there and, you know, mirror back for me where I'm at today, because, you know, I'm ending this call going, I'm you know, pat on the back, I'm doing pretty damn good. So thank you for holding that mirror.
No worries, it's been an absolute pleasure. Michelle, thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing from you in future.
Thank you.